So I had a TR3 at the time, which was just a great car. I really loved the TR3. And I had that at a shop. And Ray Craft was Merle Brennan's mechanic. Ray Craft was a British car guru in the Reno area at the time. Merle Brennan ended up being national champion in an E-Type coupe in the early 60s. Partially sponsored by Jaguar and Huffaker. It was a Huffaker prepared E-Type. But at the shop, when Ray Craft was working on my Triumph, I saw this white sports car, which I thought was a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce sports car of some sort. And he explained to me that it was a Jaguar XK-120. And, I looked at that car and I thought, this is really what my TR3 wants to be when it grows up. It wants to be this. And so I did some research on it. And then a few months later, an ad appeared in the local paper for the car for sale. The price was very reasonable. This was in 1975, and it was $3,300. So I talked to the guy whose name was Mark Curtis. I think he was an ad exec for Harrah's Casinos. And I negotiated the price down to $2,650. Now, I was selling Honda motorcycles at the time, and I went to my boss named Bob Carnahan, and I convinced him to go 50-50 with me on the car because I figured we could resell it in Harrah's swap meet and at least maybe double our money. So he agreed to come up with half. Of course, I still needed my half of the money, which I borrowed from his daughter, Christy. So that's how I got the car. Then in 77, I spectated the Monterey Historics, and I saw people like you and I, meaning regular people, not professional race car drivers, amateurs racing vintage cars. I saw XK-120s out there. There was 3 of them. They were beautiful in 1977. And once exposed to that, then it was pretty much a problem because I felt I was destined to race the car. I didn't want to sell it. So I worked out a plan to pay off Bob and his daughter Christy, which I did, and then started working to get the car prepared to race. The engine, the original block, was bored out quite a bit. I didn't understand it could be sleeved. My mechanic scrapped that block, probably part of a Chinese battleship now. So we got another block, rebuilt the motor. Then when I was braking in the motor going up Highway 50 out of Carson City towards Lake Tahoe, I hit a deer and I wiped out the front of the car. And so that was another year rebuild after that. And then my first event was a school that Steve Earle did with the Jim Russell Racing School at Laguna Seca at the time. And it was a school designed for future vintage car. And so I drove the car from Reno. Actually, the pass, there's a big pass that I have to go over called Donner Pass. And in March, it still gets a lot of snow. In fact, my vehicle, I think, was the last vehicle that went over, and they closed. This storm was so bad, the pass was closed for 5 days. But once over the pass, it wasn't snow, then it was rain. And of course, I don't have a top on the car. And I had my good friend in the passenger seat, Mike Winkler, who ended up working for Porsche Cars in Reno and then became the director or president of Porsche Cars Australia. But at the time, he was about 18 years old or 19 years old. He was my assistant. We went over the pass. We drove through the rain. We did the race school. I only had one headlight because I didn't have the job repaired from when I had hit the deer. And everything was rushed. But that was my introduction to the vintage racing scene. And of course, as you know, it's kind of like a heroin problem, except more expensive. So I'm hooked on it.
And you basically stick with the Del Monte group?
Well, that back then they didn't necessarily have a specific Del Monte group, but this is the only car I have that's really can be set up for racing. I mean, I have some other cars now, but at the time I didn't. Okay. And of course, at the time, I didn't have any the financial wherewithal to have a tow vehicle and a trailer. So I just drove the car to and from the races over the years. And at first I was kind of the redheaded stepchild because, you know, everybody had nice trailers, nice transporters. They'd lay down AstroTurf and I would lay like this, all my crap all over the place. And that was a little bit of an embarrassment. But then over the years, they started to see that I was having as much fun as 2 or 3 other competitors and spending a lot less money. And so I kind of won them over the years. And then in 1989, Automobile Magazine gave me this The Way It Was award, which was a wonderful award at Monterey when it was the mark was Aston Martin, which was a great year. I don't know if you were there or not, but it was a wonderful, wonderful year. And so they recognize the fact that I'm doing it the way they used to do it. Drive the car there, unload all your stuff, tape up the headlights, and race the car, and then drive home. So
That's great.
so this is only the second event in 170 that it was not driven to. The first one being Phillip Island, Australia.
The first one?
The first one that I didn't drive the car to.
In 170?
In 170 events,
Holy
right?
shit.
Was, now this race weekend is 170. When I raced in Australia, it was like weekend 120 or something like that.